if you're a Texas fan, an Oklahoma fan, a Big 12 fan, an SEC fan, now we wait and watch. Texas and Oklahoma are going to project that if they have to, they'll see this thing out till 2025. They don't want to, they don't expect to, but legally, this is what they need to say. This is what their lawyers are telling them your official position needs to be. And now they're going to sit back and they're going to watch the rest of the Big 12 lose its mind. And I think in terms of when the Longhorns and Sooners are playing in the SEC, I think 2023 is a target date that you could likely circle, but all of it's going to depend on what happens next. How quickly do the other schools in the Big 12 start to look out for themselves? What does Kansas do? What does Oklahoma State do? What does Texas Tech do? And if they start to scramble, they find their new homes, this thing has a chance to dissolve and break apart rather quickly. But in a perfect world, Texas and Oklahoma aren't having to forfeit tens of millions of dollars in penalties to make this happen. So they're just going to sit the hell back. They're going to chill and they're going to wait and see how this thing proceeds. They may get voted into the Big 12, or excuse me, into the SEC in the next week or two. It might be before the start of training camp when you see them admitted into the SEC. But from a start date standpoint, it all is connected to the events that will take place now, and they're uncontrollable.
Well, there's there's two things, right, Ketch, is what happens to the Big 12, and of course, what happens in the immediate. What happens to the Big 12 once Texas and OU leaves will be definitely interesting, because anybody that they put in is not going to have the name recognition or probably the history of success. What if they go back to the what's up with USF, what's up with UCF? I mean, you can add in teams in order to add it. You can add in Tulsa. I mean, you can try there. Maybe there's a domino where some of the other conferences get poached and you get teams that move up, but there's not going to be, the star power in this conference is just gone. I mean, what conference could Baylor realistically go to, and how many people would say we really want Baylor? There's no disrespect. I'm just talking about from a names recognition standpoint. For Kansas has got the basketball brand. So what happens in the Big 12 is definitely going to be interesting. Oklahoma States of the world, but that's why, Ketch, I just wholeheartedly believe if you are the SEC, and really if you're ESPN that has the money to pay the penalties, but for both schools that you could probably make back with some ad revenue, I think 2022 has got to be your target. I think the last thing that you need, and I think last thing Texas and Oklahoma needs, is to be the hated schools going on road trips for the next 2 years. I don't think that's good for the safety of coaches. I don't think that's good for the safety of parents. I don't think that's good for the safety of fans who want to travel, because there's going to be some anger. There's some animosity as far as what's going to be lost. So to me, kids, they've got to make it happen sooner than later. I know they can, and hopefully it's just a negotiating thing, and hopefully there's a process that they're going to go through. But even if 2023 is a little ways about, Catch, I just wouldn't want to be, have my kids, or my players going to all these places where I know they are going to be hated because of the, what may happen to the conference, and of course the financial blowback that, that could eventually happen as well.
I mean, Texas stays hated. I mean, you've been to Lubbock. I mean, that place, you've been to Lubbock after it's been somewhat neutered. I mean, they're not allowed to throw shit at people like they used to, but in general, everywhere Texas goes, they're hated. They're
never going to be hated the way they are now, which is,
but if you're hated at a 10 and it's a 1 to 10 scale, it can only go up to it. Like if we were to create a supermodel scale and it's 1 to 10, I mean, 10's as high as it can get, no matter how fine that supermodel gets. She might be the finest woman in the world. Either we decide that she's the only 10, or, the 10 just has different layers of 10s existing. There's your Brazil, right? Like Brazil has its own layer of 10, but no matter what, at some point it reaches its cap. I don't know. I have not sensed from Texas officials that they're worried about their players or their coaches. Now, maybe that's just because they don't do a whole lot of, they traditionally don't spend a lot of time thinking about coaches and players first, no matter how much they say it. This is just going to come down to these schools being able to find their safety spots, and their safety spots being able to work in a way where they also can join in 2023. But if the Big 12 is in a position where the majority of the teams in it can't begin conference play somewhere else on the same time frame, then this is where Texas and Oklahoma, I think, get pushed into a corner that they don't want to be. I mean, Texas will do a lot of things, but the idea that they would just forfeit tens of millions of dollars, whether they have it or not, isn't the issue. This is a school that may be changing its ideology in a lot of significant ways, but setting money on fire just for the sake of setting money on. This was a school that less than a few months ago contemplated not getting rid of Shaka Smart because of buyout money that's a fraction of the cost of what it would take to leave the Big 12 early and the tens of millions in penalties that would come. So I hear you. I do. And hey, I've seen ugliness in the Big 12 before, for sure. But Texas ain't about giving up tens of millions of dollars to anybody just to be able to move a little bit early. They will not do that, in my opinion. They will wait. And if they're pushed into that corner, maybe their line of thinking changes. They are betting that this thing takes care of itself for them, that the natural byproduct of them, because technically they haven't even left the Big 12. Technically, all they've said is, we're not renewing our rights, we're keeping our options open. Now they want to see what happens around them, and they're praying, they're begging, they're banking on that this thing is so unsustainable that they'll be able to avoid, I think, the financial penalties that would arrive if they just simply said, we're taking our ball, we're leaving it, and we'll just pay whatever it costs because we want to do this now. I don't think they're at that frame of mind. Maybe they could get there, but for now, this really is about creating the chaos, letting the chaos occur, and then sorting out all of the dead bodies when it's over with.
Yeah. And by the way, I never said Texas would pay. I said maybe ESPN could help out as far as, I
don't think that's going to happen. Like
I'm just saying. Well, they did sign a $3 billion deal with the SEC. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm just saying what my thought process is as far as getting them out sooner than later. In ways that it could happen. It doesn't necessarily involve that.
Anwar, real quick, and I just to put a ribbon and bow on that, I
Sure.
think you and I both agree the contracts say till 2025. While it is really hard to handicap the percentages of, would it be 2022? Would it be 2023, 2024? Would they really wait till 2025? I don't know how to break those percentages down. I think both you and I would co-sign on the idea that there's at least an 85% chance they don't go till 2025. The details have to be sorted out, and how they get there remains, I think, unresolved. That just feels super unsustainable to think that 4 more football seasons could occur before this move is made. Ignore what the lawyers and what the early rhetoric sounds like on official statements. That's not sustainable.
It's Catch. I don't see how it is. There's two things that have to happen. And first of all, if you're the Big 12, you have to find other suitors to keep your league alive. So if you're the Big 12, you've got to start talking to other schools, see what their contracts look like, buyouts look like, and get those things in the works in order to try to fight. Now, also, if you're the Big 12, you're probably going to try to, you're going to beg and plead. And it's probably not going to work at all, because, I think this comes a move that helps out, both. But I'm with you, Catch. And I can't see this kind of uncomfortableness Because it's going to be uncomfortable for a lot of people involved. I can't see everyone being this uncomfortable for another 4 years. Like, I see at some point there's going to, there'll be some sort of maybe like buyout of some sort of reduction in something, but not just the entire time. Just because everyone at this point, again, it's like announcing that you're getting divorced. But at some point, you're just going to want to move on, and that's what's going to happen. Everyone's going to want to move on and start fresh.
It's one thing to getting, I had a like 18-month engagement that felt really long. An 18-month divorce sounds excruciating.
What does a 4-year one look like?
A 72-month divorce sounds like the type of thing that causes people to hurl themselves off of buildings.